the liberal corporate media really is made up of only two kinds of people anymore. And I'm going to show you one of the best examples of my favorite kind in this video. And my favorite kind, without a doubt, are just the dumb ones. I really like the dumb ones. They really do believe, with no evidence whatsoever, no evidence necessary, that they're just correct. They believe that J6 was an insurrection. They don't need any evidence. They still believe that Donald Trump is a Russian asset. No evidence necessary. And they honestly believe that Kamala Harris is some sort of intelligent moderate with great ideas and great policies. And they believe this one with essentially the opposite of evidence. And Kate Baldwin on CNN, man, she decided to interview Vivek Ramaswamy, and she gets more and more pissed off the longer he talks, right? And it's pretty damn funny to watch. As you listen to Vivek, just watch this poor girl's face, man, and just listen. Here's a good one. Listen to the way Vivek says Kamala's name.
Yes, right now is former Republican presidential candidate and Trump campaign surrogate Vivek Ramaswamy. Thank you so much for coming, and it's good to see you. So the campaign memo also makes clear that part of the strategy right now is to continue to try to define Kamala Harris as extreme and radical. If you take a look inside this new polling from CNN of likely voters in these battleground states, though, what likely voters are saying is that is not yet working. Showing the way we see it, the way the numbers show it is showing voters largely describe Harris's views and policies as mainstream and Trump's as too extreme across these states. About half in each state saying Trump's views and policies are so extreme they pose a threat to the country, while around 4 in 10 say the same about Harris's position. A lot of numbers, but the point being is if voters don't agree with the extreme narrative against Trump, do you think Team Trump should be shifting now against Harris? Sorry.
I actually disagree. I respectfully disagree with your characterization there in one important way, which is that voters have not yet been exposed, principally via the media, to what Kamala Harris's past positions actually are. I don't blame the voters. They've been served up a new version of Kamala Harris where she is running to the center on economic and social policies. But the reality is, if we're able to use Kamala Harris's own words against her, as I believe we should, she ran for president favoring an tax on unrealized capital gains, favoring an abolition, her words, to abolish private health insurance, a ban on fracking, bans on offshore drilling. These are the kinds of policies that absolutely are not mainstream for most Americans. And this is where I do think the debate will be useful. I do think that greater media scrutiny of Kamala Harris, hopefully with more sit-down interviews than we've had so far, will be helpful. Say what you will, you may or may not agree with Donald Trump. He and J.D. Vance have sat for tens of interviews, as have other members of the campaign and surrogate team. The reality is we haven't seen the same from Kamala Harris. I do expect that's going to change in the next couple of months, and I believe voters are going to be very well informed heading into November.
The guy's an absolute stud, man. And apparently the correct pronunciation, the correct Indian pronunciation of Kamala Harris's name is Kumala. And I'm just waiting for some dim propagandist to jump on him about saying her name wrong because, of course, he's the Indian face of white supremacy or whatever they want to label him. It's pretty clever. And Vivek is right, man. I honestly cannot believe that these people still invite Vivek onto their shows. There's no possible way that this girl or her producers ever imagined in a million years that she was going to outsmart Vivek. There's no way. The guy's too smart, and his point is perfect. Of course people are responding to the poll this way. They don't know any better. They only know what people like her have told them. And we know not very much of what they've told people is true. And even the true stuff doesn't seem to resonate, right? We unfortunately have a freakishly large number of citizens that are so financially illiterate that they can hear Kamala pushing price controls and fantasizing about corporate greed. And that actually sounds good to them. That actually sounds right. Everything sounds correct. I mean, Democrats today are no different than Democrats have ever been. They prey on voters that just don't understand how the world works.
Vivek, but on banning private health insurance, she has said she does not believe that, and she does not believe that now. On banning fracking, she has made clear, and she did in the interview with Dana Bash, that she does not support that anymore. If evolving, or so call it what you want, flip-flopping, you can call it what you want. But one second.
I can't leave that hanging. I can't leave that hanging on policy, if I may.
I understand, but I'm going to ask the question, then you can totally answer. She said very clearly
absolutely.
that now is no, those are not her positions. If evolving on an issue, if evolving on a position, you can even call it flip-flopping on an issue. If that is now not allowed, if that should be, the death knell to a campaign, Donald Trump's got issues there.
So look, the reality is Donald Trump's been clear about his policy positions. With Kamala Harris, I want to be specific about this, though. Actions speak louder than words. When you brought up some claims about Kamala Harris. I want to finish that discussion. She said she didn't favor a ban on fracking now. The reality is she was one of the strongest proponents of that ban, so much so that when she was in California, she sued the Obama administration over granting fracking permits. She didn't just favor the abolition of private health insurance. She was a co-sponsor of the bill with Bernie Sanders as a U.S. Senator for Medicare for All for Americans. The reality is, when you think about the Green New Deal, she was the chief proponent, not just as a co-sponsor of the legislation, but going further and saying she would end the filibuster in the Senate to ram that through. So the reality is she can say what she wants to say now. Those are actions she has taken. Is someone allowed to evolve? Of course they are, but she deserves to explain exactly why she's changed those positions, exactly what her position is. If it's not a ban on fracking, what exactly is it? What exactly is her healthcare plan if she no longer favors abolishing private health insurance, which just 4 short years ago when she ran for president, she did? And that's the kind of scrutiny that's been missing. I think Donald Trump has received plenty of scrutiny, and I give credit to him for sitting for hostile interviews that Kamala Harris has not. But the American people, the American electorate deserve a rich policy debate that they have not had with Kamala.
And it gets to be, I guess it will be for the voters to decide how long of kind of an expiration date there is on when something is still your position, or if you believe them now on what they're saying on their position. Voters get to decide. She said that her position has evolved on that. Is it okay for candidates to evolve on a position over a period of years?
I think it's perfectly acceptable. I think most people need to rethink their positions over time as facts change. But they deserve to explain to the people clearly what she has failed to do. And it's not just a change in position. These are hard positions on which she has actually taken policy action, both as a vice president, an attorney general, and a U.S. senator. And simply saying she doesn't believe that anymore is not a sufficient explanation on core issues that affect costs for Americans, health care for Americans, taxation for Americans, including taxes on unrealized gains, on which she has not yet changed her position. That, I think, is a devastating economic policy that's among those she needs to explain.
That's the point. I mean, obviously, Kamala Harris hasn't actually explained how her positions have evolved, right? Being on record supporting insane positions and acting on those positions with every opportunity and office that you've ever had, and then just going and saying through some random surrogate that you no longer believe any of that stuff, that's not evolution. I mean, she's hiding. And she did it in the most spineless possible way with Dana Bash. I mean, she told Dana Bash that she's made it very, very clear in previous debates where she stood on fracking. No one can find that. I mean, she's never really made anything clear, actually. But I mean, just listen to this propagandist, man. As she rolls her eyes and huffs and puffs every time Vivek speaks. This is a journalist defending Kamala Harris and essentially answering questions on her behalf. I mean, why would Kamala Harris ever give an interview or talk about any of her positions when she's got media puppets just like this out doing it for her? I mean, honestly, I hope that enough people see exactly what this is and exactly how they're doing it.
Positions that candidates seem to be struggling on. Donald Trump continues to be struggling on stating a clear position on abortion and reproductive rights. Last week, he was asked his position on a Florida ballot initiative he will be voting on to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. And the way he responded to the question was 6 weeks is too short. I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. The next day, he said that he will then, though, support the 6-week ban. Why is he struggling to state a clear position on abortion then?
So again, I respectfully disagree with your characterization there about him struggling to state a position. The truth of the matter is Donald Trump has been crystal clear that, first of all, this is an issue for the states.
And that is an issue that he's going to be voting on in the state of Florida, right?
Well, first of all, in his capacity for running for U.S. president, what he's running for Kamala Harris against, he has been clear that he is against a federal ban on abortion. Now, on the Florida bill, which I want to address as well, there is a difference between being opposed to a 6-week ban, which he's been consistent on, both during the campaign when I ran against him, as well as throughout, that he's against a 6-week ban. That is different than what this ballot measure accomplishes. And I know you know that, Kate. This ballot measure would through its vague crafting, would allow abortions far after 6 weeks, arguably under the interpretation of some legal scholars, all the way up to the point of birth. He's against that, and that's been a consistent position as well. So I do think this attempt by Democrats, and it's politics, so you'd expect it, to conflate an opposition to a 6-week ban with somehow being in favor of a ballot measure that actually would allow for far more than that is, I think, sophistry. And the job of voters, I hope they do it, is to see through that, even if it's served up to the media. You can't conflate those two things, and I don't think that's an inconsistency, with all due respect.
Things you also can't conflate is on the issue of, and I've heard this time and again, of accusing, of saying that Democrats, in putting this on Kamala Harris is, saying that they're going to be able to, as you mentioned, up to the point of birth or execute a baby after birth. That you do agree that that is illegal in all states.
That is
not an issue.
Is and should be illegal, except for when you look at the vaguely drafted statutes that are now expanding in these ballot measures. And I think that's the debate we ought to be having in this country, is an honest debate at the state level. And where I give Donald Trump a lot of credit, this was my position during the presidential campaign as well, is that this is an issue for the states in a post-Dobbs world. I think Roe was correctly overturned. I think most Republicans agree on that. This is now an issue for the states. And I know that Democrats want to make this a core issue, but the reality is it's not a presidential issue anymore. It belongs to the states. Kamala Harris has wrongly characterized and wrongfully stated, I think in this case I'd call it an outright lie, saying Donald Trump would sign a federal abortion ban when he's been clear that he's against a federal position on this issue. And I think voters deserve that kind of clarity.
One thing we do also know is that voters, not Democrats, say that abortion is an important issue in this election as well. But as you said, it's for the voters now to decide, and much more to learn after the debate coming up next week. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. Thanks for coming on. Sarah?
Yeah, as usual, man. I mean, great job by Vivek. I have always been a big fan of Vivek. The guy's going to do great things, but I have a feeling, I don't think our friend Kate will be inviting Vivek on her show anytime soon, right? Because he's absolutely right. I mean, the entire machinery of the left and the corporate media are in complete and total Trump attack mode, while at the very, very same time, they're all in Kamala protection mode. And it's so blatant that people have got to see it, man. It's unbelievable to me that anyone that can still form their own thoughts could watch an interview like that on CNN and not see that this is a journalist defending and essentially speaking on behalf of a presidential candidate. I mean, it's amazing. And I wonder, honestly, why they do it. I wonder why the Kates of the world do that. I mean, how did they think this ends? I mean, they told us for years that Joe Biden was competent. They hid his true condition from the average CNN viewer, and then they literally ran a coup to get themselves out of that mess. And then they act like all addicts act. I mean, they acted objective for about a week, and now they're back to doing the exact same thing. I mean, they're covering up Kamala's positions, covering up her record, covering up everything about the woman. And I don't know where they think it actually ends. I mean, this cannot possibly end well. It won't end well if they get away with it. But that's all I've got, man. Let me know your take in the comments, guys. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.